I was the mother of 4 young kids. We, as women, we just do, don't we? We
Yeah.
survive, we get through, somehow we push through. And
Hmm.
then, to be honest, the narrative that is around when you do seek help, which I did when I tried to speak to doctors or even voice that, I don't feel good, my periods are heavy, you're just led to believe that this is quite normal. I feel I was led to believe that it was a me problem, that I was actually quite weak and I should toughen up, and they're just periods and get on with it attitude. And so I think I just assumed that every woman felt this way, that everybody was going through it. So even though I was asking for help, I was going to doctors, going to hospital appointments, having scans, I was just constantly dismissed. And I will be honest, in those days, I didn't advocate for myself enough, as much as I do now. Nothing was ever done, or a consultant would never look at the scans, and then you would just disappear into this rabbit hole again. And this
Mm.
happened several times. And I think I learned along the process to start pushing and to really take over my own health management.
Welcome to the 51%, the podcast where we cut through the noise and get back to basics when it comes to women's health. Through expert insights and powerful personal stories, we help you tune into what really matters: your body, your well-being, your life. No one-size-fits-all advice, just real conversations to help you understand your health on your terms. But before we dive in, I've got a quick favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and join the 51% community on our website. It's free and helps us grow, reach more women, and create events that really speak to the health and wealth challenges we all face. And finally, just so you know, everything shared is for information only. It's not medical or financial advice, and always speak to a qualified expert for support that's right for you. Sahir, welcome to the podcast. It is great to have you on. I'm excited to have this conversation with you because it is about your very long and challenging journey with endometriosis, and also, perimenopause, medical menopause, your kind of way through that, and what you did is amazing. Your journey is amazing. So please, could you share a little bit about who you are, what you were doing before, what you're doing now, and of course, your journey with endometriosis? That would be great. Thank you so much.
Yes. Hello, Shreya. Nice to see you. My name is Sahir Ahmed-Evans. I am a menopause coach, speaker, and advocate for women's health. I'm the founder of SAE Empower Coaching, but that's not the start of my story. I actually started in fitness and wellness because of my own personal journey. So my own challenges with health got me really trying to think how I could switch that around and how I could navigate that journey of endometriosis, had a heart condition, debilitating migraines, chronic pain, you name it, I had it. And I was just literally surviving through the days. That's how I felt. And at the time, I had 4 young children, a business, my husband wasn't well. Life was challenging, and I knew I couldn't continue down that path. And actually, I had a really scary health crisis where I ended up needing blood transfusions, being rushed to hospital. And I decided in that hospital bed that night that I was going to turn my pain into purpose, and that I had to invest in my own health, prioritize my wellness, but that I wanted it to be more than that. And I wanted my journey to be more than just my journey, because I didn't want any other woman to have to feel as I did in that hospital bed. And that was the start of my career, would you call it, my business into health and wellness, fitness. I started as a personal trainer, a Pilates teacher, a pelvic floor coach, and I've worked in that for 10 years now. And then I transitioned also to endometriosis coaching and menopause coaching, because my own journey continued through these 10 years of endometriosis, because I was actually only finally diagnosed about 2 years ago. And so I've meant that I was managing through those years. And I really do believe that my lifestyle and my fitness was what helped me manage for so long, because when they did diagnose it, it was quite severe. I had severe endometriosis, advanced. It was on my rib cage, thoracic endometriosis, umbilical endometriosis on my belly button. And they just wanted to clean put me into medical menopause to manage it because of my age. So that's my story, really. That's where I started. And like I said, I transitioned, and this 10 years this year of me being in this work. And that's where the rebrand came along, because I felt that I was moving more towards women's health, menopause, more than just fitness. And I say that lightly because fitness is very powerful. But I felt that in my interactions with my clients and the women I worked with and even my online followers, that there was more to it, and they were asking more deeper questions around health, how to manage lifestyle, holistic practices, mindset. And I could see that I needed to deliver more because I was being asked of more, and even just in my own life. And so that's where the coaching aspect came along. And that's where I'm doing more now, really, is coaching with menopause, endometriosis, and a lot of creating content around that and speaking at events. And yeah, it's become quite big, and it's taking over a lot of my time.
Yeah, I know. I can absolutely see that. The work you do is absolutely amazing. And I know that you said, you want to, from pain to purpose, and it's fantastic what you're doing and helping lots of women, and your journey, coming from the South Asian community. There aren't many women like you talking about the pain you suffered, what you did to get through that, what happened to you, and your personal unique journey. And you just sharing your journey and helping others. Well, your journey will help others because that look like you, because they will look at you and think, oh wow, someone that I can resonate with. Yes, our journeys will probably be very different, and our experiences will be different, but at least I feel that there's someone I resonate with and feel more comfortable as well. So there's a lot to cover.
Yeah.
But, if I go back to the beginning, you mentioned heart condition.
Yeah.
Now, is that something you were born with, or you developed later in life? And how did you manage that and get that diagnosed, really?
Well, not sure whether I was born with it or it appeared later. It did. The first time I really noticed that I had an episode was, I think I was around 20. I had 2021. So I had 3 young kids at that point. So it probably was like late 21.
Oh, okay.
And it just happened out of the blue. I had really fast heart rate, so palpitations, but you think much higher. So the highest I think was recorded, I remember seeing when I was rushed to the hospital, was over 300 beats per minute.
Wow.
So, and this could continue. Sometimes I could manage to try and get it under control, but in those days I couldn't do it. And I would have to be sort of emergency to hospital. And then the treatment is actually to stop your heart. So they would inject me with something that just completely would put the shutdown on the heart, because it's like a computer almost. You'd have to reboot it, recalibrate it. It'd stop, and then hopefully it would come back to regular beat when it would kick back in.
That's scary. That sounds scary.
It's a pretty horrendous procedure, because you actually, in that moment when they give you the injection, it feels like a double-decker bus falls on your chest and you're just like taken aback, and the heart stops. And then it restarts. And if you're lucky, it stops the first time. Otherwise, they might have to give you a second shot. And usually I've been okay with the second shot. Now, this could trigger at any time. Like, there was no inkling. I found this really random thing that quite often when I would bend over, like I would just catch, and that would kick it off, and it just would start. So this continued. This arrhythmia continued along with the other conditions. And it's just something that I've learned to manage through the years. And actually, my episodes have lessened as I've gotten older. and gone through medical menopause. So I do think actually hormones were having something to do with triggering, but I was never really given an answer. I could never quite figure it out myself.
When did the endometriosis start, in the sense that what were your symptoms and how long did it take before you were actually listened to?
Now, do you know what? I think that my very first endometriosis symptoms were very on in when my period started. I can remember this one time, I must have been mid-teens, and I collapsed to the floor then in pain. And I can remember my father then having to pick me up and put me on the sofa. And obviously he was very concerned. And only in hindsight do I think that was an endometriosis flare, because at the time there was no answer. I just had severe abdominal pains, and nobody then, definitely nobody was talking about endometriosis. This would have been 35 years ago, something like that. I think that was like my first initial experience. Then obviously I got married quite young, had children. I was intermittent on the pill between my children, which does mask it a lot and help symptoms a lot. And it was actually only after my last child, I did no contraception after her. And that's when I really felt the symptoms kick in.
Right.
The period symptoms were debilitating, heavy, long, painful periods that were obviously leaving me quite depleted of iron. And then eventually hemoglobin, when my hemoglobin dropped so low that I had to have the blood transfusions. And just generally taking over my life, I was just felt like I was weak. I was constantly in this brain fog. So I would say around 15 to 16 years ago, after my youngest child, when I really started to notice how it was controlling my whole quality of life.
And of course, obviously, with some people, endometriosis can affect fertility, but that wasn't the case for you. And
no.
And this is the other misconception as well. People automatically think if you've got endometriosis or you might have it, you're not going to be fertile, and it's going to hugely impact your fertility. And obviously that's not the case for you. You have 4 wonderful children.
I think that was probably because I had them quite young, especially the first 3.
Oh, okay.
I was barely 18 when I had my first daughter, and I had them one after the other. So by 22, I had 3 children. So I was very young, and so very early in your kind of hormonal years, to be honest. I've probably only been having periods for not very long. Potentially that was a reason why I was able to get pregnant quickly. And even my youngest, she was still when I was only 29 years old. So I think that might have been a reason behind that. But yes, I was blessed not to be troubled with fertility. But all the other symptoms that were just life debilitating.
So when you started experiencing, I guess, obviously the symptoms, you ignored the symptoms during your kind of, teenage years. And then, of course, life took over. You got married, you started having children, and you were taking the contraceptive pill, which was, of course, masking the problem. At what point did you think actually something is not right, and what did you do about it?
Well, after my daughter was born, and I started to feel, she's nearly 18 now. So a couple of years after her, I was just, you have that initial period of time after you have a child where you're just not quite yourself, and it takes time. And then after a year or so, you start to feel better. You feel yourself. You come back into your body. You feel stronger. Well, I never really had that after her. Well, I don't think I had it after any of them, but definitely not after her. And I just carried on feeling awful and not being able to pick up. But I was the mother of 4 young kids. When we as women, we just do, don't we? We survive. We get through. Somehow we push through. And then, to be honest, the narrative that is around when you do seek help, which I did when I tried to speak to doctors, or even voice that, I don't feel good, my periods are heavy, you're just led to believe that this is quite normal. And that I felt, and I feel I was led to believe that it was a me problem, that I was actually quite weak and I should toughen up, and they're just periods, and kind of get on with it attitude. And so I think I just assumed that everybody every woman felt this way, that everybody was going through it, and that I just needed to manage better because it was my load and it was me being weak was the reason why I couldn't cope. So even though I was asking for help, I was going to doctors, going to hospital appointments, having scans, I was just constantly dismissed. And I will be honest, in those days, I didn't advocate for myself enough, as much as I do now. But I still did more than probably the average woman. I just never felt like I got anywhere. I was having investigations and being told that this was quite normal. I would get random statements being said to me by the sonographer, like, oh, your uterus is quite bulky, or your ovaries, oh, they look a bit, but, oh, it's okay. And I would just have a scan and be sent away, and nothing was ever done, or a consultant would never look at the scans, and then you would just disappear into this rabbit hole again. And this happened several times. And I think I learned along the process to start pushing and to really take over my own health management. So I would make sure that my scans were seen to, or I would have to chase, could a consultant look at it, or could I have an appointment? But even when you're doing that, you're still waiting sometimes months and years to get an appointment. Because let's say, for example, we went all these years, and then in 2023, when I was back getting seen finally by gynecology, my appointment for my consultant was cancelled for a whole year, over and over and over again. And I was continuously on the phone to the secretary saying, I'm in agony. There's something going on that it needs to be seen. And there would be all sorts. Oh, there's a strike. Oh, that this clinic was cancelled. And when it was cancelled, it wasn't like 2 weeks. That means you were waiting another 4 months. And this went on for a year just from that, and from the 2023 saga. So you can see how years can actually just disappear.
Yeah.
Of you trying, years can disappear, and you don't even realize it because you're just trying your best, and you're trying to live your life and manage your children and your home and your work. And if you can manage to find it in you to advocate for yourself, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work.
Yeah, it's like having another part-time job, isn't it?
Literally, it's like having another job to deal with the NHS and the system that it is now. I'm going through it again. I've had another flare-up recently, which is the first flare-up in 2 years of being in medical menopause. And I'm quite shocked and probably feeling quite down about it, that, oh, we're back here again. And I feel the dismissal again. I feel the chasing again. And I'm thinking, oh, not now.
Even though, which is quite ridiculous, really, because they know it's a confirmed diagnosis now. And the dismissiveness and all of this is carrying on now, which is really bizarre.
Yeah.
And, I was having this conversation earlier, all credit due to the GPs, the doctors and everything. We know that they're strapped for time and there's all sorts of problems going on. But the whole system is breaking or broken in some parts.
It's broken and it's completely flawed, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's completely flawed. And I have to say, my GPs are fantastic. My GPs push it through. It's just when it gets to the hospital, then you don't get a look in. And what I've really, really noticed is that because it's gynecology and because it's women's health, there's a completely different outlook on the way you're treated. It's very, very different. Even when I ended up maybe 6 weeks ago in the emergency department, let's say it's called surgical emergency or something. And it wasn't the gynecology, it was the surgical emergency, because they assumed that the pain that I'd had was kidney stones, and that's why they rushed me in. And they were fantastic. They were so good, so quick, very thorough. But when they realized it wasn't kidney stones and they transferred me to emergency gynecology, that's where the whole crisis started again, of me having to really advocate, really push, and be told again that, well, I think I was told about a week ago that you don't look like you're in enough pain to be here, is what I was told. And I said, I'm in pain every day. I can't function. I can't do my job, my work. And she wasn't a consultant, she was a junior doctor, and she said, yeah, but you're not tachycardic, you don't have a high temperature, you're not going to need emergency surgery, so there's nothing we can do for you right now. You wait for your appointment. Now, bearing in mind that appointment is at least 6 weeks away. For that appointment, if I get acknowledged there, so I'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. So how long did it take to get an official diagnosis then?
Over 13 years. Over 13 years. And in that 13 years, I had GP visits, hospital appointments, several scans, several internal scans, so the transvaginal scans, which are very painful post-scan if you have endometriosis, like it causes a real flare-up. In 2016, so that was about 10 years ago, I had a surgery given to me, which I know now probably did help a little bit, but it wasn't the right surgery because I would have been showing signs of endometriosis, but it wasn't diagnosed. When I asked, is this endometriosis? It wasn't an endometriosis specialist, so I got told, no, you just need this ablation and you'll be fine. So, even having the wrong surgery, it was just a very long process. And obviously, for an individual, it's a learning curve. I wasn't who I am now. I didn't have the knowledge that I have now. I mean, my whole work and career and business is around this. So I thoroughly research everything, but I didn't know that back then. And I only know it now because I've had to do it and I've had to look into it for myself and for others. I know far above where my profession is. My sister always says, oh, you know more than half the doctors. And I said, it's because I've had to learn.
Yeah. Could probably get like an honorary degree or something in endometriosis.
Yeah.
So once you were diagnosed, finally, what were the next steps for you? What did they decide to do and how did that pan out? Because also, let's tie this in with the medical menopause as well, because they kind of went hand in hand. And were you told about, because one thing I've learned is people aren't told what medical menopause means, as in what the outcome is of that. And they all of a sudden go into medical menopause, have all sorts of things going on and don't know why.
Yeah, so it was a similar story for me. I went to the first appointment at endometriosis where they were able to diagnose everything very quickly. And in that appointment, they basically said, surgery is an option potentially down the line, but the waiting list, etc., we suggest you go into medical menopause. And to do that, we would need a biopsy. And you can have the biopsy, then we'll, put you in medical menopause and you can go home. It's as simple as that. It was made to sound very, very simple, right? So I agreed to this biopsy. I got told that I could have gas and air. And the nurse specialist's words were, when I stop, the pain will stop. So if you're in too much pain, just say, and I will stop. I didn't think much of it. It was a case of, oh, good, I am getting acknowledged here. I'm getting a treatment here. I've waited for 13 years for this appointment. Yes, I'm going to agree because I don't want to leave this hospital without treatment and I'll be back on a waiting list and an appointment will be cancelled and I'll be, going round in circles again.
Yeah.
So I agreed. We went into the room to have the biopsy, and obviously endometriosis causes a lot of internal damage, change of structures, organs get moved around, and there's so much that goes on. So obtaining the biopsy became very, very complex and complicated. I was in the room for over 40 to 50 minutes. It took 4 practitioners, 2 of those were consultants, to try and get this biopsy. In that whole time, I didn't have gas and air. And I was in a situation where I couldn't even ask because I just had to keep doing my breathing practice to try and survive the pain. Had the biopsy, was given an injection and said, okay, that's fine. Come back next month for your next injection. Now, at that point, I didn't even realize I was having an injection. I assumed it would be medication of some tablets of some form. And I left the hospital and that was it. I was in agony from the biopsy. And it didn't end there because it became infected. And I do believe that I had internal damage because the pain went on for months. I had to really fight for even antibiotics because I couldn't get through to anybody. My GP obviously didn't perform anything, didn't know anything. I had to try and get a hold of the nurse specialist, the consultants at the hospital. I was emailing, trying to call, and you're made to feel like you're a nuisance and you're being dismissed. I eventually got a hold of someone who said, yeah, it's probably an infection. Go to your doctor, tell them this, ask them to do a swab, ask them for these antibiotics. And it was me having to do all of this in the middle of being in agonizing pain. You know, I couldn't get off my sofa. I could barely walk to the bathroom. I was in so much pain. And I was calling, emailing, trying to get somebody to just listen because I knew at this point something wasn't right.
Mm.
And I was put on the antibiotics and the saga continues because the pain wouldn't clear. I just felt absolutely awful. And I booked in to see my NHS consultant privately because I was desperate at this point. I was absolutely desperate. And I thought, I need someone to take me seriously.
Yeah.
I booked in and he was very good because obviously it's actually getting in front of him is difficult in the NHS.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, you're on the wrong antibiotics. These are going to make you feel awful. Gave me a new note and said, go and ask your GP for these antibiotics. And then eventually at some point I started to feel better. But it took me, I keep a diary and I keep a journal, and it took me 8 months before I was relatively back to pre-biopsy, pre-diagnosis, pre-medical menopause. But there is a silver lining because once I'd hit that point, then medical menopause became like my silver lining. I managed to build my strength up mentally, physically, emotionally. I got back to myself, and it honestly was then the strongest I've ever been in every way. And that has kind of got me to here.
Yeah.
But when I looked into it, being put into medical menopause when you're an endometriosis sufferer, actually your body does this. It goes into a flare up. So it kind of rebels against medical menopause as if your body is saying, well, you're trying to turn off all the hormonal taps. I don't like this. I'm going to fight against you. And your hormones actually go very high. Mm-hmm. But I only find that out through my own research. That was part of how awful I was feeling. So it was the biopsy, but it was also the body rebelling against this medical menopause. But I was given no inkling of that. I had to come home, research, Google, do everything possible and try and find out what was going on.
I mean, I'm a bit taken aback by that, to be honest. It's kind of it sounds like in the UK, you'd think, is this actually happening?
Yeah.
You know, like it sounds like something that would be in a movie, it's not real, you know?
Exactly.
And it actually shocks me to think that, God, that this isn't a new thing. You're not the only case. This is like, there's thousands of women going through this in different ways, and there's no change.
No. And it's quite scary because, like I said, I went onto Google. I create content around women's health online. So I asked my followers, I put out a question there. I went onto forums. Now that's a good thing and a bad thing because you will get all the horror stories. The horror stories terrified me. And then I thought, oh my God, what have I done? Why have I agreed to medical menopause? This is going to destroy my life. And, then you have all that. And I managed to be able to have enough mental strength and capacity to try and pull myself out of going down that rabbit hole and just think, no, I have to approach this from my point of view and just let my body recover from the biopsy, let myself move forward from the internal stress that I'd gone through. So there was physical I can't say the word. I needed to get better from the physical damage. And then obviously also the adjustments of the hormones. So I had to let my body go through that process. And it was month upon month upon month. And I did get there. But obviously, you know, coming from my background from health and wellness, I knew a lot of the things that I had to do. I knew how to give myself the strategies, how to build on it, what I needed to do to get better.
What did you do?
Well, first of all, nothing. I had to just rest.
Yeah.
I pulled back completely. I don't think I went on my social media. My social media was my work. I didn't go on social media I went into like a hibernation.
Yeah.
And I had to, because I was in a very bad headspace, physical space. I rested completely for months. Then I started but in that rest, I was making sure I was getting all the good things, you know, the broths, the turmeric drinks, all the anti-inflammatory foods I could manage, and just get myself back to an even keel. When I felt like then I could start to rebuild from that recovery, then I started to rebuild. So I was then doing the gentle exercise, the Pilates, the movement, increasing day by day just the strength and the activity, to the point then, you know, I would never have recognized myself after a few months. I was like, okay, now I am the strongest physical, mental, emotional strength that I've ever been. But it was a long process.
Is that how your kind of journey into Pilates started?
Yeah, pretty much. That's how my journey started 15 years ago, when this whole lifestyle started for me, was because post my daughter and feeling very unwell and like I didn't recover postpartum, I knew that I couldn't continue down that path, that I had to find my own way. And my own way just started with something simple like walking. Then I added in Pilates. And that was the start of my work then. You know, for a couple of years later, I became a health and wellness professional, and I completely shifted my careers in something 2015, I think it was.
Yeah. So what do you think, what are the top things you think that really helped you? You know, I know Pilates is probably one of them, but what other things did you do? Because, you know, we're talking about health and wellness as a whole now. It wasn't
Yeah,
just one thing. There's
no,
many things, you know, and it never really usually is just one thing. You
yeah,
know, when you feel ill, generally, whatever that illness is or whatever that disease is, there are lots of things you need to do. It's not that
yeah,
one, you
yeah.
know, if it was that one thing, God, everyone would be in an amazing place right now, you know. But
That's yeah. That is
it
what I
takes a lot of
always
time and
say.
effort, a
It
lot of time and
does. It
effort, you know?
does. It takes a lot of time and effort, and you know, that's hard to find when we live the lives that we do nowadays. They're busy.
Yeah.
We've got the family, the home, the kids, the work, the extended family. There's a lot of load on women right now. And but it starts simple, actually. I started simply because in those days, I didn't know anything. It was 15 years ago. I wasn't a health and wellness professional. I didn't look after myself. I was just quite a young mother who was trying to bring up her kids. Yes, I'd done a bit of exercise in my teenage years, but I didn't really have much clue. So I started with something really simple like walking. Then I added in Pilates. That I took that to realizing, you know, I needed to make lifestyle adjustments with my food, with managing stress, with making sure I was getting sleep, you know, the right amount of sleep, the quality of sleep, and just making sure that I was getting some supplements if I needed them, but trying first and foremost to get it from my food, and then adding in supplements if I needed them. So I ended up supplemented because I have had very debilitating migraines. And I, you know, as you've probably gathered now, that I research a lot and I look into health and wellness a lot. So I researched what supplements could help migraines, and it kind of started from there. So all that became part of this journey towards health and wellness and making it my work, my calling, as you might want to call it, my career. And it was all very organic, and it just was these building blocks upon building blocks. and lots of reading, podcasts, and just trying to get my information from medical professionals and doctors and people who knew what they were talking about, had the expertise of what they were talking about, not just following, say, an Instagram account that was just potentially selling something, or was somebody who was self-made, had no qualifications, no educational background, and would just
there's an ulterior motive there at the
could
end of the
take you
day.
down a pitfall of not doing the right thing. So I was very careful about where my knowledge comes from. And obviously getting certified in everything. I made sure I was certified in all my movement practices that I was teaching, then going on into endometriosis and menopause, so that I could, for myself, first and foremost, know what I was digesting was fully the correct knowledge. And then obviously for the women I work with.
So you're coaching women through endometriosis and menopause together or separately?
Separately, but together, potentially, because we do know that research shows that endometriosis symptoms can worsen as you go into perimenopause, which I do think was the case for myself even, that's why the symptoms got worse and worse and the degree of endometriosis got worse, obviously because I wasn't getting treated and hadn't been diagnosed, but because your hormones fluctuate so wildly at the beginning of perimenopause that was just aggravating the endometriosis and increasing it in the body. Because the driver for endometriosis is estrogen, and estrogen at the beginning of perimenopause actually can be very, very high, but intermittently. So it's this fluctuation that causes the aggressive endometriosis.
Yeah, I mean, it must be there's a lot of information on both, menopause and as in perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, and then of course the endometriosis. And obviously you've gone through the whole lot and using your experiences and, advocating, helping women advocate for themselves is a massive thing, because women don't. And when you don't advocate for yourself, it's a challenge. It is getting anywhere. And even when you do advocate for yourself, like you did up to a point, you still weren't getting anywhere. So it's challenging. So it's really finding people and communities that can support you and you can relate to and give you ideas, and knowledge is so it's knowledge is power, but it's also how you use that knowledge as well. You're not just sitting with a whole load of knowledge.
No, it's definitely that. And advocating for yourself, it sounds so simple, right? And even I know that I've been through this journey even in the last 2 years, and then what's happened in the last 6 weeks, it surprised me again, because I think, now I have to find that power and that strength to advocate for myself again, because look how easy it is to be dismissed. And I think maybe I went into this initial flare thinking everything was going to be so much easier because I've been through it. I have a connection with the endometriosis team. I'm on the list. I still go there every month for an injection. This is going to be fine. And then I got quite shocked well, no, actually, it doesn't make any difference to my appointments and my consultations that I'm under the team. I still go on to a long list, and I'm still getting questioned about the level of my pain and how bad things are. And I'm still being made to feel like a nuisance, actually. And I found that quite shocking. And I had to dig deep and say, right, okay, have a chat to myself and say, you're going to have to fight this, because you're going to get pushed around again, and potentially you're not going to get your treatment quick enough. And, things could continue getting worse. More damage could be done internally. So it's trying to find that strength. And so it's not, advocating for yourself is not that easy, actually.
Yeah. Do you think there was that added layer of obviously coming from a South Asian background?
Yeah.
And then there might even be a further added layer of, religious background. And then there's other, there's lots of other added layers, right?
Without a doubt, and I think that theme I have seen runs quite deep. And it doesn't even just come down to endometriosis and menopause. If I tell you a story, so both my daughters are struggling with low iron at the moment. It just seems to be a common theme. But let's say my elder daughter, I'll tell you her story. She's postpartum. My granddaughter's going to be nearly a year. She had a hemorrhage in labour, so she lost over half her blood.
Wow.
And she was immediately given iron. She was rushed to surgery, given iron transfusions, and it did go up to quite a high level. And she felt in the last couple of months that she's not feeling good. And obviously she's learned so much about this advocating for yourself, looking after your health. And so she actually went and had some blood tests privately, and she had an iron infusion privately. And that nurse practitioner told her that you're having this now, but you're going to need more, and you're going to need more iron, and your iron shouldn't be dropping so low. And I want you to go and see your GP. Tell her that I've said this. So she went armed with everything that this nurse had said, this nurse specialist had said. And her GP basically said, it's not that low. And it is low. It was below the NHS guidelines. It's not that low. So I'm not going to give you anything, not even going to give you iron tablets. Just see how you go. But you seem to be quite down. And she said, well, yeah, I am quite down because I don't feel well and my iron is really low and I'm probably depleted in other things. I've had a nurse specialist send me to you. She's told me to tell you this. Can we look at the iron? No. I don't think we're going to address the iron. But we can address the fact that you're quite down. Do you think maybe you'd like some antidepressants?
Oh gosh, yeah, that the famous antidepressant route.
When she told me, I thought only menopausal women were getting this treatment. But I said, you're postpartum. You have your figures in front of you that your iron is below NHS guidelines. If your iron is that low, you're not going to be feeling good physically or mentally or emotionally because you're going to be tired. You've got a young baby to look after. And instead of addressing that, she offered her antidepressants.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
That is extremely frustrating. Does she get her iron in the end?
Well, I think she's going to have to go private again for the second iron infusion and different things, which, okay, she can maybe manage to afford it. Her husband can manage to afford it, but that shouldn't be the case because if even according to NHS guidelines, her iron was too low, why is she not being given a prescription for iron tablets or even an iron infusion, but she's being given a prescription for antidepressants? I just don't get it.
Yeah, that I don't get that either, to be honest. And with the whole iron thing, actually, I feel like that is on the rise. I mean, with so many people, so many women I've spoken to, low in iron now. I mean, it wasn't. I'll be honest. When I was growing up, it wasn't a common theme, and now, like, even I don't have low iron, but my children have low iron.
Yeah.
And, like to the point where they're on permanent medication, as in permanent iron tablets.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why, what is that? And I'm just like, I want to understand why, yes, you can keep giving someone iron and iron, but what is the problem? Why do I need to keep giving my children iron constantly,
Yeah, I totally agree. And it definitely seems to affect South Asian women a lot, is this iron issue and depleted iron and actually trying to get it back up again. It was obviously the reason 10 years ago when I ended up in hospital was my iron had fallen so drastically low that it affected my hemoglobin. I was told at that point, if we don't get you some iron in some blood transfusions, that you're going to cardiac arrest at any moment. Why are we even getting to that level?
Yeah. I have no idea, but these are the kinds of things I want to start talking about in terms of, why is this happening? There must be some research, and, if more and more South Asian and Black women are coming through with low iron, that there needs to be some kind of something needs to be looked into.
Yeah, some research needs to be done around it,
Yeah.
into this population as well. And we know that research for women is so much more less than men,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
and then research for ethnic, Black, South Asian, anybody of color is even less. So
Hmm.
it's trying to get that going and trying to get, catch up in that, which that's not an overnight process. That's something that
No,
take a long time.
it's not. And that's why for me, the podcast and my events and whatever that I do and whatever you do, it is literally about, we can't wait for the research to catch
No,
up. God knows when that will happen. So
yeah,
let's get the knowledge, but use that knowledge,
yeah,
obviously, and use that knowledge wisely.
yeah,
And, to really try not to listen to the misinformation out there, because there's so much out there.
it is.
Um, and just tune into yourself.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you as well, coming from, being South Asian, did you face any kind of negativity within the South Asian community for, being, because let's face it, menstrual problems are
Yeah,
taboo.
yeah,
Yeah. And, periods, all of these are kind of taboo subjects,
mm,
especially maybe not for our children now, but
mm,
when we were growing up,
yeah,
certainly it was
yeah,
taboo.
yeah.
And then you now advocating for yourself and you're kind of out there talking about it and promoting. Have you faced any kind of negativity?
To be honest, I haven't. And I get asked this question quite a lot
Yeah.
because obviously it's not very common for a
Well, it's
Pakistani,
refreshing to
yeah,
hear, because all I
Pakistani
hear
who's,
is the
yeah,
opposite. Yeah.
yeah, no, I haven't. Hopefully that doesn't open me up to getting any now, but no, I haven't because I think people are, and women especially are, in a frame of mind that they're like, oh, thank God somebody is doing it. They don't
Mm.
want to do it necessarily, and they still
Yeah.
feel very shy to do it, which is fine, fair enough. I never thought I would be the one to do it, but it's just where my journey has taken me.
Mm.
And now it's become part of who I am, what I do, and I wouldn't have it any other way because that's the way I'm making a difference in the world and leaving my legacy. So that's become that. But thankfully, no, I haven't had any negativity. I think I get a few questioning eyebrows here and there, but nothing enough to stop me. And it wouldn't even stop me if I had negativity because I have a reason to do what I'm doing. I have a mission that I'm on to make sure that if even one less woman can feel how I did
Yeah.
in those situations where I was in such emergencies or in such pain, or even now, what I'm going through, if I can make even a difference to one woman's life, that I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. So,
Mm.
and I think for me, it's even more than that actually, because I remember when I was started out in this work, yes, I started out being a sort of fitness professional and wanting to help women. But on my vision board, when I started to take it a bit further a few years ago, I was vision boarding of what do I want to do? Why do I want to do it? What is
Mm.
your why? Basically, that question that you get asked. And I just wanted to be a positive hijabi role model for women of my generation and lower generations, younger than us. And internally and externally. So I wanted to make a difference in our communities, but I
Mm.
also wanted to show the wider community and wider world that a South Asian Muslim grandmother that I am now can have a voice, can make a difference, has something to say. You need to sit up and listen. That, we're not all, we're not, never mind all, we are not the oppressed women that you think that we are. We have so much to give and offer. And that was part of my my journey, my story, what I wanted to achieve. And I'm really grateful that I've been able to do it and that I'm doing it. And then every day I am making that change and doing those new things and
Mm.
entering new spaces that potentially you wouldn't have seen a woman like me in.
That's fantastic. And you're right. You talk about people judging you, thinking, you're going to be, because you're from the South Asian community, or, you wear a hijab. there's certain, people will think, oh, they're suppressed and they don't have a voice and all sorts of things. But that's what the media portrays. And we know that, we know the media portrays a certain narrative with certain groups of people and, just women in general as well. So, when women like yourself, myself, and other women come forward and kind of do the opposite.
Yeah.
And it's not even doing the opposite, we're just being normal. This is how we are.
Yeah.
It just shows actually, oh, right, okay, I didn't think that. And it opens people's eyes as well, which is kind of another good thing that can come out of it. So definitely. I think what you're doing is fantastic. And of course, all your details are going to be in the show notes. And if anyone wants to connect with you, it will all be on there. But what's new and happening for you now? If you could just share quickly.
Oh, gosh. Well, like I said, I recently rebranded this a few months ago because it's very timely. It was to celebrate 10 years in this field, in the health and wellness field, moving more towards the sort of coaching and the speaking aspect and getting out there into the wider world and making a difference. And it's happening very fast. It's happening very big time. I did a campaign with Bupa Healthcare, which is about Let's Talk Health, where I, along with some other people, shared our stories about health and why it's important to talk about your health for each other, for yourself. That led me to being into British Vogue. I will be showing up in Hello Magazine soon, in Friday Magazine, speaking at lots of events. So there's a lot happening. And I think it's really special and it's really wonderful, and it's to be able to stand back and look at your work and your efforts to see where you started and what my visions were then, and to think, wow, look how far that has gotten in sort of 10 years of being in the work. And I never would have thought that would have been the case. It's really rewarding. And I'm really proud of it, actually. I'm really proud of the journey. I'm really proud of that I put myself out there. It's not an easy thing to do, so to get up and go against the grain a little bit and maybe have those questioning eyebrows, or to just be a bit different. But there's lots more to come. Speaking events, I'm speaking at quite a few conferences. I'm organising a conference with a charity in Cardiff. I've been nominated. Well, I received one award a couple of months ago, and I've been nominated for another couple. So it's all happening.
Yeah.
It's all happening.
That's fantastic. And so you should be proud of yourself, because you've gone through a lot, you've achieved a lot, and, you've turned your challenges that you've, had throughout the years into meaningful, purposeful work, which there's something in that in itself. So I can't wait to see what you do next, and all the great things you're going to be doing.
And I've got my offers and my program coming out soon for coaching, where it'll be like a coaching program, all holistic, everything that I have learned and studied and researched and implemented with myself and my clients and my communities globally is going to be available for somebody to work with me. So that's nice. That's been a long time in the process.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Sahir, thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing your journey so openly. I really appreciate that. And I can't wait to see what comes next. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a really insightful chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.